We're ready for the start. They're off.
Welcome in. If it's Tuesday, it's official. Jeff Siegel, Jeremy Plonk from First Bet to take on 5 hot topics in horse racing. One topic we don't have to take on was last night's national championship game, 65-7. Georgia, sweet Georgia, Jeff. That was a blowout we haven't seen since maybe Hollywood Park was on those grounds of SoFi Stadium.
That's correct. Someone wrote it looked like Landalusi back in '82 when she won a race by 22 lengths. That's the biggest blowout since then, you know. No, I mean that was not surprising. I mean, I thought that it would be a game. I was hoping it would be a game, but I can tell you that UCLA plays Georgia in 2 years. I hope there's a turnover in roster between now and then. I don't want to mess with those people. But congratulations to Georgia. They are the new Alabama, I guess. And, we'll look forward to next year and not having to play them until the following year.
One championship crowned there. More championships to be crowned in horse racing at the end of the month at the Eclipse Awards. We're going to talk about some different topics here this week that include the Eclipse Awards. So let's go to the big board. The first of our 5 topics will be just that. The envelope, please. The finalists have been announced for the Eclipse Awards in all categories. Jeff, we're going to review some of these. Not all of them, but we're going to put them all up on the screen. These are all the dirt horses who were the top 3 picks from the panelists who voted for the Horse of the Year in the Eclipse Awards, different blocks. The turf riders have a block. The industry's got a block, I believe. Some breeders and industry types as well. So champion 2-year-old male, probably a slam dunk there with Forte. The filly, I think Wonder Wheel, not a whole lot to decide there. Champion 3-year-old male, we've got ourselves a little bit of a decision. Let's talk about that one. Epicenter, Modern Games, and Taba. I know on a previous edition of It's Official, we were pretty confident and bullish in there that we thought it would be Epicenter. Still feel that way?
I do. And again, it's when you're voting on something like this, whoever is voting is going to have to try to put emphasis on something. And I think we both agreed that Epicenter's participation in the Triple Crown and his success, he ran well in it, was maybe the tiebreaker. If you want to present a case for Taba, you can, but you have to ignore the fact that he wasn't a factor in any way, shape, or form in the Triple Crown, whereas Epicenter was. They all of them won good races. I mean, certainly Taba won more grade ones, but I think the bottom line for me is what I think is important, and that is put emphasis on the races that are the most important in the division. And that's what I did when I went with Epicenter, and I think he deserves it. And besides, Taba's got a very good chance to win an Eclipse Award next year in the older division. So let him wait his turn, and he'll do it perhaps in 2023.
Continuing on with the dirt runners, no question about 3-year-old filly. It'll be Nest in a runaway, maybe unanimous. Flightline is going to be a unanimous older male. I can't see any way that won't be the situation. Older female, you've got a little bit of a decision there, but Malathot, right?
Oh, yeah. No, Malathot is absolutely a deserving favorite. Good night. Olive is going to win her sprint. But she'll win it in the female sprint. But Malathot, to me, closed the season out in terrific fashion, and she will get that award. I was reading today or yesterday that she's going to be bred into Mischief, I believe. So that'll be kind of fun to see how she produces as a brood mare. So many of these great mares don't. It's no slam dunk. Once they go to the breeding shed, they start over like everybody else. So
I look forward to that offspring at Keeneland. Into Mischief wins with everything he throws at Keeneland, and Malathot was about the queen of Keeneland in her racing career. The one there on the dirt screen that we were talking about among the finalists that you thought was most contentious was the sprint. Cody's Wish and Elite Power, they won the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile and Breeders' Cup Sprint, respectively. Jackie's Warrior up through the end of summer may have been the pick for a lot of folks, but Cody's Wish, Elite Power, which way do you lean between those two?
That was really tough for me. Elite Power got beat in his debut and then won the rest of his races, including the Breeders' Cup Sprint. And he might be the one that's left out because Cody's Wish won more. He was more He was more of a middle distance horse, but he did, because he won the mile, but he also won a 7/8 grade one at Saratoga, one more grade ones. I think Cody's going to get it. If you look at the PPs, which a lot of voters are going to look at and look at them side by side, you'll notice that Cody's Wish had much faster buyer speed figures. Now that shouldn't count, but it might, And so based on numbers, on resume, and maybe versatility, and the fact that he probably beat more consistently better horses, I think Cody will get it. But it's a close call. It really is. And again, another situation where if you want to make a case for the other horse, you'd have a real good case to make.
And sentimentality is real when it gets to elections and voting. And Cody's Wish is certainly going to have the feel-good momentum behind him for what he represented for the young man, Cody. So let's go to the turf races, the turf divisions, I should say, on the Eclipse Awards and the Humans. And we'll take a look at some of the other divisions. The turf male, this is, Modern Games or Rebels Romance, maybe depending if you like short or long. Modern Games with the 2 races in the United States or in North America, the Woodbine Mile being the other. Maybe the lean to Modern Games, the miler in that spot, Jeff. And then the turf female is probably the most contentious of all of the Eclipse Award individual horse categories, divisions. In Italian, Regal Glory, Warlike Goddess, there are actually 3 very good options that are close to separate.
Well, what's disappointing here, although it's real. I mean, I live in the real world, so I'm not going to say it should change. But you look at Modern Games, Nation's Pride, and Rebels Romance. Between the 3 of them, they only ran 7 times in the States. Modern Games twice, Rebels Romance once. And yet our turf division is so modest in quality and in consistency. You had to go with the Euro, and because Modern Games won 2 races and the other horse just won 1, Rebels Romance, you give it to Modern Games. So, but I'm glad that Godolphin is sending these horses over. It just makes it. I mean, they're better than our horses, but at least makes these races feel like championship races because they're top class horses, and we just don't have any homegrown state horses anymore. They just aren't here.
And that turf male division kind of looked like a slot machine, right? Appleby. Yeah. I mean, all the apples came up on that one. 1, 2, 3. How about champion turf female, though? Well, Italian, Regal Glory, Warlike Goddess. Now we have a discussion.
Okay, now you really have a discussion and the only thing that makes this discussion a little moot is because the same guy owns them both, Peter France. So he's not going to care one way or the other. So if he doesn't care, why would I? But if you look at in Italian and Regal Glory's record this year, 7 wins, 4 wins in 2 seconds. That's 7 starts, rather. 7 starts, 4 wins in 2 seconds. In Italian, 7 starts, 4 wins in 2 seconds. Exactly. They face each other twice. One beat the other each race. So that it's 1-1, no head-to-head. You can't even go to that, Right. In Italian, won 2 grade ones. Regal Glory won 3 grade ones. Like that's the tiebreaker, I guess. I don't know. I mean, Regal Glory didn't win a Breeders' Cup. In Italian, was second in her race. Regal Glory was off the board, but she ran against the Colts, so you can't hold that against her. I lean a little bit towards Regal Glory over in Italian, but again, if you want to make a case for an Italian, it's like again, it's like who you go down to the 5th or 6th tiebreaker, you come down to the grade ones. Regal Glory by a whisker over in Italian. Do you see it any other way than that?
I think Warlike Goddess has a shot in here. I think beating the boys in the Joe Hurst Turf Classic and the fact that the other 2 Brant Brown horses could split the vote a little bit, that kind of gives that chance for a little third-party candidate, if you will, to sneak up into it. So this is a tough one, but I'm going to put my money on Warlike Goddess to win the balloting. I'm not saying that she's better than the other 2, but I think beating the boys in the Joe Hurst Turf Classic, and she ran really well on Breeders' Cup Day against the Euros going along on the turf. So I'll give it to Warlike Goddess, but that is the toughest division by far. Amongst the Humans, Jeff, I don't really have any dog in the fight anywhere. Trainer Steve Asmussen, Chad Brown, Todd Pletcher. Give it to any one of the 3. I mean, it kind of seems like they all had really good years. Maybe Pletcher had his best year in a few years, and maybe it's Pletcher's turn to take the baton here. I don't know. They could just come right back for Chad for. I think it'd be 3 in a row if Chad.
Look, if you go statistics by statistics, Brown probably has had the better year. But I mean, it's like, do we really care that much? Is anybody going to get up in arms if one or the other of the three win? I mean, whatever,
They've got enough trophies, those guys.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
enough. I will say this for the apprentice jockey, though, and put this back up real quick so you can see the nominees for the fans out there. Barbosa from Maryland. I'll tell you, Vicente Del Cid down at Delta Downs. In Louisiana. This is the next kid to come out of Louisiana. We haven't had one for a while. Kind of Joe Talamo maybe breaking out of Louisiana and going more national. But of course, that was the cradle of jockeys for years. Louisiana producing, the Burrells and the Borks and the Delahoussays and people like that. I think Vicente Del Cid's got a big future. I'd like to see him get the award for champion apprentice jockey. And one thing about the steeplechase, I want to mention. There have been some people on Twitter talking about how they're abstaining from votes in the Eclipse Award. Get over yourself. Yeah. Do a little research. Make a vote on it. If you feel you're not equipped to do it, then don't vote for any of the Eclipse Awards. I mean, it would be like a Major League Baseball writer deciding they don't want to vote for Rookie of the Year because they didn't follow the rookies close enough. Right. Shame on you. Do your job. Do your work. For a lot of people, an Eclipse Award vote is simply paying the $40, $50 it takes to be a member of the National Turf Writers Association. Right. That's it. And if that's your qualification to vote for a championship honor, then get the hell out of the way. That's the way I look at it. Do your work. Do your research. I don't vote in the Eclipse Awards. If I did, I would certainly do the research and make an informed vote. Abstaining makes it seem like you're more important than the process. And trust me, you're not.
I agree with that. You're not more important. And I don't vote, but I looked at it. I tried to come up with some kind of, decision. Hewick is a horse that won a race called the Grand National at Fair Hill back in October. That was his only start. All I know about the Grand National is that was one heck of a movie with Elizabeth Taylor back in 1942 when they won it at Aintree. But all kidding aside, I mean, his form looks pretty good. He probably should win it. Although I remember watching the mare Down Royal, the gray mare by Alphabet Soup, win it at Saratoga. That was kind of fun as well. But there are people who are more into that than I am and probably have a better opinion. But I'll be watching. I'm interested. So we'll see how the voters and hopefully they take it seriously how they vote for that. The rest of the voting is. Whatever it is, we'll forget about it 4 days after it happens. But the people who win it, it's important to them. So if it's important to them and you're voting, at least put a little effort into it.
Yeah, and it's worth some money probably in the breeding shed in some of these divisions too.
Oh, yeah.
Stallion fees, mares producing runners and stuff like that. So take it serious, do the research, because again, there's a lot of money on the line and a lot of prestige that goes with it if you are part of the process. Let's go to our second topic this week on It's Official. Sometimes you say it's a better bet to bet the other Baffert, the longer of two odds. Well, what about when he's got 4 in a race, Mr. Siegel? He had 4 in the Sham Stakes on Saturday at Santa Anita. He scratched 1, Speedboat Beach, and he still got the victory, but not with the 1, not with the 2 that you thought. It was the third.
Newgate, there's been no change. Reincarnate, a neck in front now of Spun Intended. Now it's a half length coming to the quarter pole. Newgate makes an early move with the yellow cap, and he joins the party. And National Treasure is in the thick of it as Paxawallop drops back. And now National Treasure angles to the outside as they come to the 16th pole. Newgate on the outside, and a resilient Reincarnate trying to fend him off. Reincarnate, Newgate, National Treasure, Reincarnate, and Juan Hernandez to take the Sham.
So the longest shot of the 3 Bafferts by far, a horse who took, 4 starts to break the maiden, had been kind of nibbling around, barely got over the maiden condition. The disappointment, National Treasure, right? Coming out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, the expected top horse of that Baffert trio in there. Bob runs 1, 2, 3. None of them get Kentucky Derby points because he's not allowed to get those while horses are still in his name. Your thoughts on the Sham, Reincarnate, and the rest of the troop?
Well, I actually thought in handicapping this race that whoever made the lead would win. That's just the way, because and the one that I thought would win was Speedboat Beach, who was scratched. So, so best laid plans, and Speedboat Beach will run in the San Vicente. Bob will back him up and run him 7/8. I'm not sure how far he really wants to go, but I think he would have won going a mile. As for the winner, Reincarnate, I mean, he was in front. And the other horses, the other two Bafferts, National Treasure and Newgate, they have never struck me as horses who want to pass anybody. So it may have been one of these situations where whoever did make the lead was going to roll all the way to the wire in a race that really did lack closers. So I don't know. I mean, the number came up pretty strong, 95. But I didn't, in visually trying to analyze this race, I didn't really see anybody who really wanted to go on. Did you, Jeremy? I mean, they all kind of looked like they were spent at the end.
Exactly, and I don't think this is one that's going to project really well forward. We've had some courses out of the Sham. Authentic has run well, and Medina Spirit went on obviously and had a really big year, but I don't think we're looking at that in this year's group. The other thing we learned, Paxa Wallop, not a dirt horse, really didn't have it going turf to dirt. We saw that earlier with And the Winner Is, the horse in the Gunrunner Stakes, who had won the Bourbon on turf for Wayne Catalano. He tried early on the trail. You're only 3 once. We say this a lot on the show, but everybody's going to get a good turf horse is going to get a dirt shot. It didn't work for Paxa Wallop. It didn't work for And the Winner Is in a couple weeks ago at Fairgrounds either. So we're waiting for a star to emerge amongst some of these 3-year-olds. They haven't done it per se in the longer stakes races. I kind of like the horse who won the Sugar Bowl most of all. The Brad Cox Sprinter is probably the one who's caught my eye most amongst these 3-year-olds that you're trying to see who might step forward. But I didn't see it in the Sham. I wasn't overly impressed with this race.
And really, Bob's got 3 other horses that have to earn money for a different earn points for a different trainer to get into the Derby. But Arabian Night, Cave Rock, and Foston to me are head and shoulders above this group. But again, the number was fast, so I don't know what to make of that. But again, I don't really think there is a Derby type horse in there. And National Treasure, who ran reasonably well, when he was third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, is another one of these factors that lead me to question how strong the Breeders' Cup Juvenile really was. I don't know. I mean, the winner obviously is a champion, but I don't know if the Derby's coming from that group yet.
Yeah, Forte, Cave Rock, the first 2 in there. Forte probably not going to run until the Fountain of Youth. Cave Rock is back on the track at Santa Anita. I saw a photo of him. I don't know if he's doing anything real serious yet to get geared up, but Cave Rock in training. So we'll see what Bob will have developed, where they will end up, and which one of these 2-year-olds will become a star 3-year-old. It didn't happen last year for anybody. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year was pretty much just a pitch as they got to become 3-year-olds. I don't know if that'll be the case this year. I think Forte and Cave Rock are pretty nice horses. So let's see where we end up in a couple weeks' time, in a month's time or two. We start to get some of those kind of horses back on the track. Speaking of the 3-year-olds, it'll be time to hit our Triple Crown tracker on It's Official. Topic number 3 on the big board this week. We've got 4 different 3-year-old races to look at over the weekend. First up, the Jerome Stakes, where we said Lugan Knight was coming out of a key race at Churchill Downs. He had to take on the big favorite coming off a big race in the Remsen. Those 2 showed down.
Quarter mile left to go. They are head and head here. Arctic Arrogance is ready to challenge a very game Lugan Knight down towards the inside. Trying to rally on his general banker, and from the back it's Neural Network, who still has 5 lengths to make up a final furlong, and they are shoulder to shoulder here in the Jerome. Arctic Arrogance did not run by Lugan Knight, who's very game to the inside for a 16th to go. Lugan Knight is still there. Arctic Arrogance couldn't pass. Lugan Knight game and wins the Jerome. It's Lugan Knight over Arctic Arrogance, then General Baker, and Neural Network in 1 minute 37.77 seconds.
Well, Lugan Knight was coming out of that race against Victory Formation at Churchill. Victory Formation already came back and won the Smarty Jones. Now we've got a horse out of that same allowance race to come and win the Jerome. The one thing about Arctic Arrogance, the runner-up, is he's due a little bit of luck. He ran a bang-up race in the Remsen when coming up just short the WHNO, and that one, and it came back again. I mean, he likes to fight. He's in it for the fight, but he's now 0 for 2 in the big ones in Arctic Arrogance. It's not going to get any easier for him moving forward.
No, but Lugan Knight and his connections, Michael McCarthy and the owners, they have to figure out now what to do. It's always tempting when you've got a colt like this winning a listed stakes early in the 3-year-old season, and he's been a consistent horse. The 85 Byron number assigned to the races, nothing special for sure, but it was a career top. But the word is now they're not going to get Derby fever, and I'd like to see that happen because everybody gets it. Eventually, you always want to you want to find out for sure, but right now it looks like they're going to keep Lugan Knight around 1 turn. And being by Golden Sense and out of a Speightstown mare, you definitely have to be pretty optimistic to think that colt's going to go a mile and a quarter. So maybe they should just let him do what he wants to do and build up an impressive resume and win as many races as he can. Arctic Arrogance, of course, has already won a mile and 8, so there's every reason to believe that they'll stretch him out again. But good, solid race. Probably what you would expect from a race like this early in the year. But I think the first 2 colts are decent and maybe even better than that.
And there's a little history with McCarthy backing up that kind of, we're not going to get Derby fever. He had Rombauer a couple years ago. They got the win and you're in for the Preakness, and they decided to pass the Derby and gear up to the Preakness, and it was a winning move for him. So a little history there that that at least the trainer is not going to get whipped up into the Derby fever. Now, also on the Triple Crown Tracker last week, we had the Dania Beach Stakes on turf. Jeff, you and I talked about this Friday on our handicapping podcast for the weekend, and we talked about Candidate coming off a very impressive win on the turf at Tampa Bay Downs in Allowance Company. He made the step up into the Dania Beach Stakes, and we're going to show this to the fans here. And let's get your impressions of Candidate coming out of this one.
Candidate left alone, and he's got a kick. He brilliantly kicked off the corner. He established a 4-length lead at that stage, and now he's looking good. Major Dude tries to catch him on the money. Here comes Major Dude after Candidate. Candidate close to home. Major Dude second. Candidate in front.
That was a good race. Major Dude, the runner-up, a horse who had been in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf and ran really well there, came in with credentials, and Candidate just sprinted away from him. Now, the question becomes, do you go longer? Do you go on dirt? What can we expect of this 3-year-old? Because, as we say, there's only one Kentucky Derby, and at some point you try them all to see if they can't fit into that round hole. And where do you think Candidate could end up?
Well, if I owned him, I would be tempted to try him. Now, the trainer said that they had breezed him before he ever ran. He didn't breeze like anything special, and they put him on the all-weather at Fair Hill, and he breathed much better. So maybe they're convinced in their own mind that we've already tried him on dirt and doesn't get over it that well, so we'll keep him on grass. But he's by Exaggerator, who is nothing but a dirt horse. Has gotten some good colts, Skippy Longstocking being for one, that run on dirt, and with the idea, I think here, what I would do, and they're not going to listen to me, but maybe try him on the dirt next time and get it out of your system. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if he runs well, and there's races at Tampa Bay that he could shoot for. I mean, don't go against the biggies yet,
right?
But see what he can do. And if he wins, then you take it to the next step. If he doesn't perform well, okay, fine, we got a grass horse. But there's so much more money to be earned in dirt races this time of the year for 3-year-olds than grass. I would be tempted. He's a big, strong, strapping, good-looking colt, good moving. He's not a plotter. He has a good turn of foot. He can go to the front, but he doesn't have to. There's a big dirt prep in there for him somewhere, I would think.
Yeah, I think Tampa makes a lot of sense because they're intermediate distances, 1 mile and 1/16 for the Davis and the Tampa Bay Derby. We see the horses time up really well from those 2 Tampa races and show up at Keeneland. So if it doesn't work out for you, you got Keeneland's Transylvania in the beginning of April for the 3-year-old turfers, which is probably the best money spot for a 3-year-old turfer between now and the Crown Royal American Turf on the Derby undercard, and then that series at Belmont, and Saratoga for the 3-year-old turfer. So you could always go back to that. Tampa would make a lot of sense. Arno Delacour, the trainer, runs a lot of horses at Tampa. So
he's horse good. He already went there. I mean, he went on the grass, but he was already there and won. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he obviously didn't beat a great group here, but according to the clock, believe it or if you want, but he went his last 8th and 10-4. So whatever that was, even if that wasn't the case, he looked good, didn't he? And he wasn't getting tired. So anyway,
if nothing else, he's a really good 3-year-old turf miler type, and we'll see where that fits. The Penn Mile, obviously, but I think that's June. You got a long way to go to get to June if that's your kind of your circled race there. So a couple different options for him. Now we've got one a little bit off the beaten path. Of course, we went to the turf for the Dania Beach. Let's go to Parks. Back weekday race for the Parks Juvenile. A couple weeks ago, it was the undefeated Recruiter, trained by Cal Lynch out of Maryland, came up to Parks and kept on keeping on.
One of these horses is going to lose their undefeated record today, and it's Recruiter and Winning Time, those two slugging it out. 90% Matt, he has some fight left in him. He's coming on again, but it is Recruiter on the outside, Winning Time on the inside. Another rally from 90% Matty, and Recruiter has put his neck in front of Winning Time. Recruiter is drawing away sharply. Winning Time fighting on gamely, switching back to the outside for a re-rally, but it is going to be Recruiter. 90% Matty really fighting back gamely. He might get back up for second, but it is all Recruiter.
So Recruiter got the victory there on a sloppy track, around one turn still. Class test is still to come. Distance test still to come. Regionally, I would think a horse like this, the Gotham is the race that you circle and say, if we're going to have our race, everybody's got a Derby, I like to say.
Right.
The Derby for Recruiter could be the Gotham Stakes, where that's the big one that he should be gearing up for.
Yeah. I think he's a nice colt. He's undefeated. But he's by Army Mule. When I say but, he's by Army Mule. I loved Army Mule, and he's had a good first freshman crop, of which this colt is a part of. But you don't expect the Army Mules necessarily to run far. And this is maybe a situation where I'm a little bit more open to gambling with turf versus dirt than I am sprint versus route. Because if you run a horse long and he's not prepared for it, not ready for it, or doesn't want to go that far, you could fry him early.
Yeah.
But I don't think a turf to dirt thing would be that situation. You just tell the jockey, if he's not handling it, don't persevere, and we'll go back, But with you running a horse long, he's going to run for a while, and if he gets swallowed up, it's not going to do him any good. And if I had Recruiter, I'd probably try to keep him around one turn for as long as I can. Maybe after 4 or 5 races, and he's had 4 already, you stretch him out to a 1-turn mile and then go from there. I don't know if he's probably not any kind of Derby horse, but he's a good colt, I can tell you that.
Right.
And he earned an 86 Beyer number. That's a good, solid speed figure. Makes him thinking that maybe he's a colt that you can make some money with without actually having to get him exposed to something that he doesn't really want. But that race was last Tuesday. We talked about it briefly last week on the show, and then the race was run while we were on the show.
Yeah, it was run while we were on the air.
Right. So Recruiter to me is a horse that I think they'll treat him right. And one thing about him, he can handle off tracks. You don't have to worry about that. So we'll see how far Recruiter. And I liked Army Mule a lot as a racehorse. So I'm glad to see that he's starting to produce horses that can run.
Little one-turn action still to come at Laurel during the course of the winter season, too, for the 3-year-olds. Cal Lynch could send a Recruiter back to Laurel there. That would be no surprise whatsoever. We go further off the beaten trail sometimes. Here we go now to the Turfway preview. Listed stakes race on the synthetic at Turfway Park. Hey, last year we got Rich Strike via the Turfway Preps. He won the whole thing, so this is a copycat world we live in. Would we have another horse via Turfway Park? I don't know. But Scooby Quando made the career debut. He's laughing up the face, saying, maybe I'm a Derby horse. Let's go back and look at this first-time starter. Punch him out.
3/16 to go, and they turn on down in the 28th running of the Turfway preview. Whip is out on retained, and he's responding for Malcolm. Scooby Quando is running a big one on debut to the outside. These two with a 16th to go. Retained is digging down. Here's Scooby Quando to the outside. How about this? And down to the wire, a photo finish.
Scooby Quando got the photo. First-time starter by Uncle Mo. You got speed up top and brilliance. You got a damn side pedigree, Jeff. by Daveron, the mare. Really good distance turf horse. This is what I like to see in a Derby horse. Brilliant miler speed up top and a turf side, a turf dam side. I don't know. Maybe I should get excited about Scooby.
Well, not only was Daveron a high-class race mare in her racing day, she's already had 2 foals to run, both of which I'm pretty sure we've heard of. Global Access was a champion Canadian-bred 3-year-old, and March to the Arch. Who hasn't heard of him? So the mare has already had 2 major stakes winners. So, and being by Uncle Mo, this horse sold in the June 2-year-old in training sale. He didn't breeze particularly fast, just 10-2. So he didn't bring as much money maybe as he would have otherwise, but to make his debut first time out in an all-weather race like this at Turfway, I thought he showed some moxie there. And the Beyer number of 75, not great for a stake, but a decent number for a maiden first time out. And he's bred to run at least a mile, if not farther. So I'm going to follow him. You mentioned Rich Strike. I mean, Animal Kingdom came from there and won a Derby. So I look. he's the first time starter won a stake. He's on my list until proven otherwise. Let's put it that way.
This is the year we're looking for horses, folks.
Right.
It's not like there's this big list of great contenders at this point in time from 2 to 3. So our eyes are open. It'll continue to be on the Triple Crown tracker here on It's Official over the next couple months. We had an A-plus performance as our number 4 topic. It came from Law Professor. This horse winning the Queens County Stakes, and maybe something bigger on deck for Law Professor. Let's go back to last week at Aqueduct.
But Law Professor is now kicked for home, and it is Law Professor doing it very well. An eighth of a mile to go. Law Professor is 3 lengths in front. Thomas Shelby continues to chase from the back. Naval Aviator, late run here from Bourbonic, but there is no catching Law Professor. Law Professor proving much the best, wins the Queens County easily. Law Professor gets the victory. Naval Aviator over Thomas Shelby in a late run from Bourbonic in 1 minute, 51 seconds flat.
Just like we're looking to find our Derby horse, Jeff, we're trying to find our Pegasus World Cup horse before that. The Pegasus World Cup coming up the last Saturday in January. And Law Professor was on the we'll invite you if some of the others can't make it invitee list. Had that list been sent out after the Queens County, he might have been on the first call asking.
He should have been. I mean, I'm looking at his form. I mean, he is all right. So he's not the very best in his division, but he's good enough to be in that list of horses that were originally invited. You remember his Woodward Grade 1 race? He got beat just over length to Life is Good. He was 10 lengths clear of everybody else. That was at the Big A back in the fall, unplaced in the Breeders' Cup a mile. But this was a good race for him. And, he's a tough he's not that old, actually, but he's a tough gelding for sure. And, he's only 5 years old. And winning like this. Now, I know they were concerned about, they'll probably get in the Pegasus, but it's a 3-week turnaround. But he didn't look like he ran that hard to me. I mean, he was kind of geared down the last furlong, won by 7.5. Looked like it could have been 3 or 4 lengths more. A lot of money to run second, third, and fourth in that race if you can't win it. And I'm not saying he even couldn't win it. I don't see any real major, complete, can't lose standouts like we've seen in this race before.
Right.
So I'm sure he'll get in if he wants to. And I would be tempted to take a shot if I felt that the 3 weeks' time was sufficient to have him back to his best. I love this horse, Law Professor by Constitution. I gave it an A+ for the for the title there. I never got an A+ from my Law Professor, primarily because I never took a class in law. But that's just a mild, side show. I was a radio, TV, journalism major in college, and you were a journalism major, so we didn't take any tough classes, did we?
I had journalism law. I had to take that class.
Oh, I didn't. All I had to do was prepare to
that
be
was the
in front of a
toughest one
camera
for
somewhere.
the degree, too. I will say that.
All right, good enough. Anyway, what do you think? If you had him, would you look at the Pegasus?
Absolutely, because unless you're a miler, there aren't any races on the East Coast in like the classic division, if you will, like Met Mile, like all the way to Belmont Day. There's not a lot of handicap races. You got to go to Oaklawn for the Oaklawn Handicap. You got to travel all the way to Fairgrounds for the New Orleans Handicap, all the way out west to the Big Cap at Santa Anita. For a horse like this on the East Coast, go to the Pegasus, because if you stay at Aqueduct, there's not going to be anything there in New York of any significance for a long time. I mean, you're talking summertime almost. So, you got a horse in really good form right now. You run back in 3 weeks for $3 million, $5 million, whatever. I mean, so take your shot. Entries for the Pegasus World Cup come up on January 22nd. That's the Sunday before the race. They draw 6 days out now at Gulfstream. Pegasus World Cup coming up on January 28th. We will have a wager guide for you with first, so be sure to check out our wager guide for the Pegasus World Cup when that is posted a week before the race. We've got one more topic this week, and as we wrap up over the past 6 months or so, it's been the Stars of Tomorrow. Jeff found a New York bred for you to keep your eye on. The name? Please Be Nice.
Hugging the rail was Please Be Nice. It is Please Be Nice who's finding plenty right now in the lane. Russi is chasing and disarmed. Out in the center of the racetrack is still 3 off this leader who is just drawing away. Please Be Nice is widening this margin here. Handled the early pressure, and Please Be Nice, the 3-year-old by Violence, is going to win this one very nicely. It's all Please Be Nice. Then came Disarmed. Late run there, been good to know ya, with Radio Red in 1 minute 11.75 seconds.
Now it's a New York bred, Jeff, but give us a little forecast on Please Be Nice.
Well, I mean, his number was good. He won by 10. He relaxed on the lead. He drew off. He was eased up in the last 16th of a mile. Being by violence, the violence colts can run. I'm telling you. Out of a mare by Pulpit, she was on race. Second dam was a stakes-winning Daughter of Giants Causeway. Third dam was Windcrafty Lady. It was a terrific producer. Had Harmony Lodge. Group 1 winner, Graham Hall. You might know him. He was a good horse, good sire.
Arkansas Derby winner.
Pedigree's there. So the way he handled New York bred competition, sprinting, but giving every indication that he will at least go a mile, if most of the valances can do that. I would say that as long as he stays in New York bred competition until such time as he runs out of competition, I think Please Be Nice is going to win a lot of money. He is going to be a regional star, if not better than that. And who knows, maybe he will be better than that.
All right, so Please Be Nice, our star of tomorrow, the spotlight. A lot of talk about the 3-year-olds from the Sham to our Triple Crown tracker this week. It's that time of year. Quiet week, though, on the Triple Crown Trail this week. Just the Pasco Stakes going 7/8 of a mile at Tampa Bay Downs this week, a prep towards the Sam F. Davis and the Tampa Bay Derby down there. So a little bit of a quiet week to come, but we'll have plenty of more to review next week when we come back on It's Official. Bonus topic time now. We throw one in, not on the big board from time to time. News came down this morning over the wires in the Twitterverse that trainer Jeff Mullins will be suspended for 30 days, and it's fine, I believe, $3,000 or $1,500 for a clenbuterol violation at Del Mar. The kicker is, with good behavior, he'll just serve 15 days, and they plea bargained it down to 15 days and a 50% slash of the fine. So a slap on the wrist for a rather serious violation, Jeff. This is problematic in the industry.
Well, I think so. I read the story. I was not even aware of the ruling until I read Steve Anderson's story. I was surprised that the suspension wasn't greater. I don't know the facts other than what I read in the story, but it sounds like it was like you described it as a slap on the wrist, and that probably a pretty accurate portrayal of that. He's not going to be allowed to train, but his son takes over. So, like, what's the difference, right? Is that really going to impact? I always felt that if you really wanted to put some teeth into these suspensions, and you really wanted them to serve as some kind of, something that would prevent other people from trying to do the same thing, then maybe you don't allow any horse in that barn to run. Right. Because there's consequences if your owners are part of this. Maybe they look elsewhere, or maybe there's something like that. Now there really isn't any motivation. It's just business as usual. Right. And I can tell you from experience, and I'm going to go back 20, 25 years now. I don't want to get too specific, but clenbuterol is a powerful drug, especially if you're running on it and nobody else is. And that's the situation that came to my attention in the late 1990s. Before, not only it wasn't even legal to have in possession at the time. So it's powerful stuff. And if you have a horse that wins and that horse tests for it, that to me is pretty darn serious. I can tell you that. So, and as of now, the horse that was tested for it, a horse named Inch that won at Del Mar last year, I would have to assume that they're going to redistribute the purse. But man, that's not much punishment at all. I think Jeff probably got off pretty cheaply there.
Yeah, and he's had some history with suspensions over the years and some dealings with the fans that haven't been, too pleasant. So there's not going to be a lot of sympathy for a guy like Mullins, so people want to see something like this stick a little bit harder. You did mention clenbuterol and the power of it. It is a legal medication, not during race time, in training, within limits and things like that as well. So it's not a prohibited substance, but on race day. And so, there's a reason we have withdrawal times and things like that, right? Of when things are okay for therapy, but not for performance enhancing. And so that line gets blurred. That's part of the problem always, and part of the legal discussion. But one of the guys who didn't have a lot of leash with the fans and the public back in the negative spotlight in Jeff Mullins. Disappointing news, obviously, to see that today. So that will wrap up It's Official for this second week of January. We'll be back next week to do it all over again with 5 new topics on the board. Between now and then, Jeff and I will be with you a couple times yet this week. On Friday, we'll have our weekend handicapping podcast first look as we look ahead to 8 stakes races over the weekend. And we'll also give you a preview of the big wager that started this past week, the Coast to Coast Pick 5 at Santa Anita and Gulfstream. Jeff and Brian Natto join me for previews of those sequences that take place on Saturday and Sunday. Nice week. The first one handled 470,000 on Saturday. Sunday's handle was certainly down from that, upper 170s, but the payoff, $10,000 for Sunday's Coast to Coast Pick 5, if anybody took that down. So, Jeff, we've got a nice challenge on that $1 wager to take a look at each week.
Yeah, the payoffs were good. And if we can just get this rain to clear out, another blackout for me last night, Jeremy, with the rain. Southern California can't handle rain. The electrical, the Southern California Edison, it starts drizzling and it goes kaput. So I kind of think we've had enough rain here, and it's hard because when you handicap in advance so many days, and then you end up not knowing what you're dealing with. It's kind of tough. Hopefully we will have a good weekend of racing and we'll be able to dive in again. And we're going to hit this thing. I'm convinced, maybe not this week, but we're going to hit it. And when we do, it's going to pay off really handsomely as it did in the first 2 days.
As much as you guys paying that sunshine tax out there in California, hopefully you get some of it in the coming days. That's going to wrap up. That's going to wrap up this podcast. Jeff and I will be back with you again on Friday. On behalf of everybody with First and my partner Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great day, and it's now official. Our 5 topics this week because Jeff and I said so. We'll talk to you next week.